Hey guys, welcome to Legacy Minutes for March 3rd, 2020. I know it's been a few weeks since I posted, but we are going to get back into it and get back into it in a big way. Tonight, I want to start a series of talks that we do about identity. I really want to begin to lay the foundations for what it means to be a man of legacy. And this first question is, do you know who you are? This idea of identity has come up in so many conversations that I've had, and in messages that I've heard pastors preach, and articles that I've read, that I really wanted to spend some time laying the groundwork for what it means to be a man. So do you know who you are? And I don't mean do you know your name or do you know your family lineage, whether you're Irish or African or whatever. I'm not talking about what's on your driver's license, right? I know I'm a brown-haired guy with hazel eyes, and I'm about, well, I won't tell you my weight or any of those things, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about my occupation either. Your occupation, what is it that you do? Although a lot of guys find their identity in their occupation, what they do. In fact, it's one of the first questions that you'll often be asked by another man when you first meet him, or it may be one of the first questions you'll find yourself now asking when you meet other men. But I'm not talking about your occupation. I'm also not talking about your hobbies that you may identify, a golfer or a chess player, or the sins that you may identify with. I'm a pornographer, I'm an adulterer, I'm a liar, I'm a cheater. Those aren't the things that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, do you know who you are at the core of your manhood when you peel away all of those other layers, all of those false and superficial ways that we identify ourselves? Do you know who you are as a man? I'm here to present to you that I believe most men don't know who they are. In fact, I know that for many years, I didn't know who I was. I walked this life and just wondered and would find myself going, what am I doing? Why am I doing it? Who am I? There's so much of that in our world today. I know that in our culture, we find that masculinity is being attacked, but it's so much deeper than just masculinity in general. It's who I am as a man. Who was I created to be that is under attack? I want to read a few verses to you from the book of Colossians, chapter 1, that I want you and I to spend some time thinking about, meditating on, and seeking to understand, because this question of who I am is vitally important to us being able to identify as men, for us being able to grow as men. We must first know who we are at the core of our personhood, at the core of our humanity. So Colossians chapter 1, starting in verse 16, it says, "For by him," speaking of Jesus, "for by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible, invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him." So the first thing I want you to see is that all things were created through him and for him, and all things includes us. That means that part of who we are at the core of our being is a creation of a God who created us by his power for his pleasure. And it says, "And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together." Now remember, you are part of that all things. That means that in Jesus, all things hold together. That's your life and my life. That's all of us. We hold together by the power of who Jesus is. Verse 18, "And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, that in everything he might be preeminent." What that means is that in everything he might be made much of. He might be the first. He may be the thing that we look to with our lives and say, if anything's at the top, it's Jesus. If anything is up here above all, ultimate, there's nothing above it. That's Jesus, that he may be preeminent. For in him, this is why, all the fullness of God was pleased to dwell, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether on earth or in heaven, making peace by the blood of his cross. And you, who were once alienated and hostile in mind, doing evil deeds, he has now reconciled in his body of flesh by his death, in order to present you holy and blameless and above reproach before him. You see, Jesus has a purpose for your life. Jesus came so that you could be reconciled back to the human, back to the man, back to the person that he created you to be. Jesus came because way back in the garden, in Genesis chapter 3, the first man, and this is why I say that masculinity has been under attack, that the manhood has been under attack for far longer than our current culture. Back in the garden, in Genesis chapter 3, manhood was attacked by the serpent. Man failed. He forgot who he was. He forgot that he was called by God to take dominion over creation. He shouldn't let a snake rule him. He shouldn't let a fruit tree rule him. He forgot that he was created by God to protect the garden, to watch over it, to keep it safe. He forgot that he was a husband who was called to protect his wife, and he let his wife be deceived by the serpent. Man stood by and abdicated his responsibility as what it meant to be a man, and manhood has been under attack, and men have lost their way ever since that moment. Jesus came to reconcile that. Jesus came to help men find their way back to what it meant to be a man. He said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father but through me. We were created to go to the Father. We were created to worship the Father. We were created to live for the Father. We were created to be men who protect, men who take dominion, men who lead, men who serve, men who love. And we can do none of those things apart from the work that Christ wants to do in our life and in our heart. That's what it says. He came to reconcile all things to himself. He came to take what was broken, the fact that we are lost and without an understanding of our way, and he came to straighten that out and make it right. That's what Jesus has done. So men, here's my challenge to you. Read Colossians chapter 1, verse 17 through 22, and sit in it. Just sit in it. Just sit there and ask the question, who does this say that I am? In light of who Jesus is and what he's done and who I am, in light of the fact that I'm one of the all things of creation, who am I? At the core of who I am, if I peel away all the superficial layers, who am I in light of who he is? Sit in it, meditate on it, journal on it, write on it. Ask the question, who am I? Ask the question, what is the way that I am supposed to be walking? If you don't know Jesus, just get on your knees and give him your life. It's as easy as that. If he gives you the faith to believe and follow. Be a man who is zealous, persistent, imperfect, but faithful to follow and lead others to Jesus. That's my challenge to you tonight. I'm praying for you. I've been praying for you. I love you. Pray for me. And until next time, God bless you.